welcome back to another episode of Is Fitz Happy? I'm Luke.
And I'm Emma.
And this week we're discussing Chapter 5 of Golden Fool, Shared Sorrows.
Tiny violin sound in the background.
An excerpt from Starling Birdsong's Verity's Reckoning is the epigraph of this chapter. A storm of gems they were, scaled wings jewel-like glittered. Eyes flaming, wings fanning, the dragons came. Too flashing bright for memory to hold, the promise of 1,000 songs fulfilled. Claws shredding, jaws devouring, the king returned.
I mean, technically this should be sung.
Yeah, I don't know
Because
the
it's-
melody though, so I'll speak it as if it's slam poetry instead.
A storm of gems they were, scaled wings jewel-like glittered. Up from the top. I don't know the next words of the real song, but we'd probably get copyright struck, so.
Well, this chapter is about Fitz meeting with Kettricken again. So it kind of makes sense to me to have kind of the Verity's end being triumphantly sang here at the beginning of it.
Yes, but I think it also brings to mind, well, first of all, Verity's end, but it also is a good echo of the fact that we're about to talk about, spoiler alert, Nighteyes' end, and how that affects people in real world and not just the beautiful tale that you can tell of somebody. I think it's an interesting entry. I think it's really important to note that it mentions the fact that it's too flashing bright for memory to hold, which is a subtle point out that the dragons themselves, because they're stone dragons, are taking the memories of people as they were flying over.
Yep.
And I thought it was interesting that it's worded as claws shredding, jaws devouring, the king returned, because that is the truth, that the king is the claws and jaws devouring.
Right.
So,
yeah, but everybody else listening to it is like, wow, what a poetic line.
Yeah.
king bringing
Dang,
his
that's so
fury.
good.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I don't know. It's very well done. I like it a lot.
Also, it doesn't rhyme, Starling. What are you doing?
Ugh. Hello? ABAB rhyme style? Where are we?
Or at least AABB, come on.
Tisk tisk. She should take some poetry lessons.
Fitz is up in Verity's tower waiting for Dutiful to show up for their skill lesson. And he's dozed off a little bit because he's tired, long night,
Yes.
doesn't really want to be there. But it is getting past dawn now, and Dutiful has not shown up.
Yes. The breeze has woken him from his slumber, which when we left off last night in Buckkeep, Fitz was in his rooms.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to have him waking up, but it's not where he went to sleep. It is in the tower. And as he's sitting there, he is sort of taking in the view because the window is open, like I said, and this is the view that Verity looked out, right? There is that sort of nostalgia in it. This isn't his first time seeing this view, but it does sort of open up the scene into what was once the heart of the battle against the Out Islanders in a way.
Right.
And now they are trying to make peace with those same Out Islanders. So a lot going on.
Fitz says that he's not surprised that Dutiful didn't come. Obviously, there was a lot going on last night, and he's probably still sleeping. No, there was no surprise that he should forget our meeting, or perhaps roused just enough to decide it wasn't that important and roll back into sleep. Yet there was disappointment, and it was not just that my prince found sleep more important than meeting with me. It was that he had said he would meet me here and then hadn't. And not only hadn't, but hadn't sent word to cancel the meeting and save me the time and trouble of being here. It was a trifling thing in a boy of his years, a bit of thoughtlessness. Yet what was minor in a boy was not so in a prince. I wanted to rebuke him for it, as Chade would have chastened me, or Beric. I grinned ruefully. In fairness, had I been any different at Dutiful's age? Beric had never trusted me to keep dawn appointments. I could well recall how he would thunder at my door to be sure I did not miss a lesson with the axe. Well, perhaps if our roles had been different, I would have gone and pounded on the prince's chamber door. As it was, he leaves a message drawn in the dust saying, I was here, you were not. Does not sign it. He wants to be anonymous just in case anybody else goes there. But it's also a message to Dutiful that he was there. And maybe Dutiful could even take it as a rebuke.
Yes.
But in the previous passage that I just read, I highlighted the he had said he would meet me here and then hadn't, and not only hadn't, but hadn't sent word to cancel that meeting. Well, Fitz, you're not thinking of your own meeting with Jinnah that you said you would be there for, and Hap, and then had not sent word that you had canceled.
Yeah, I wrote literally the exact same thing he just did to Hap, but okay. And he's all miffed that a prince would be so selfish, but he is a boy, so... And it's like, yeah, and what's your excuse, Fitz?
Well, his excuse is thinking back like, well, I was never good with that.
Yeah, I guess so. But he is it is funny to have the little I was here, you were not message, which he does say if anyone else comes across it, it might seem like something a page is leaving for a maid that didn't come to the secret rendezvous.
Meeting. Yeah.
But it's very clearly a rebuke. I don't know. I don't think you could read it as anything but not. But maybe that's just me and knowing Fitz's intent.
He goes back through the secret walls, the secret way down from Verity's tower, and gets himself a little bit lost to the point where he's kind of sweaty and irritable when he finally finds his way to Chade's chamber. And so he's entirely unprepared, he says, for what meets him there. Chade started up from his seat before the hearth, setting down a teacup as he did so. There you are, Fitz Chivalry, he exclaimed, even as a wave of skill slammed into me. Don't see me, stink dog man. So Thick is there as well, and Chade says Fitz Chivalry in front of him.
Yes, this is big because we as rereaders know that Thick is a spy
for the Piebalds.
And Chade has just loosed the most important secret, which is that Tom Badgerlock is Fitz Chivalry.
Yes. Yeah.
Which is also crazy to think that Chade is the reason that that's going to get out, because he is normally so forward thinking. And it does make me wonder if this is another little hint that things are starting to slip from his mind, or his capacity, just because, I mean, I know later we see that he does not think that Thick is smart enough to understand anything, but you would think after his years of assassin training that you should never underestimate anyone.
Right.
Just because they seem like they aren't smart enough. I mean, that's how we got into the whole Rosemary mess. So anyway, he does let it slip in front of Thick.
And Fitz says it's a good thing that he reset his skill walls after Nettle visited in his dreams, because if he had not reset the walls strongly, Thick might have succeeded with his skill blast to, make him not see and forget who he was.
Yeah, he even mentioned specifically that
his figure wavered before my eyes and I felt giddy.
Yes, and his figure being Thick.
Yep.
Which is crazy because that is extremely strong skill then, you have to think, because this is through the walls that Fitz is still almost obeying the skill command.
Right. Fitz addresses Thick directly and staggers a little bit and says, I do see you, I will always see you, but that does not mean I will hurt you, unless you try to hurt me, or unless you are rude to me again. Fitz says he was sorely tempted to use the wit on him to try to repel him, just to see what Thick would do, but is also like, I can't do that.
Right. And he absolutely is not going to use the skill to lash out, because that opens up his walls and makes him more vulnerable. And not only that, but will show Thick his limits.
Right.
Which is scary to do when Thick is so powerful.
Remain calm, I told myself. You have to master yourself before you can master him. No, Thick, stop that. He's good. He can be here. I say so. Chade spoke to him as if he were 3 years old. And while I recognized that the small eyes in his round face that glowered at me were not the eyes of a man my intellectual equal, I also saw a flash of resentment there at being thus addressed. I seized on it. I kept my gaze on Thick's face, but spoke to Chade. You don't need to talk to him like that. He isn't stupid. He's different, Fitz finishes lamely.
Yeah.
Because he's trying to grope for a word, but doesn't know how to nicely say it.
Right. And I personally do appreciate this sort of interaction. I think it's good to see realistic representation of how people treat people with disabilities, even if they're
Right.
a good guy, you know,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
Chade is a good person, so to speak. He's a gray area, but in our eyes as readers, he is a good person, and he is sort of talking to Thick as though Thick is a child, which is bad. And
Yeah. And he repeatedly says, as you mentioned earlier, that Thick, it doesn't matter if Thick sees the secrets because he's not smart enough to think they're important.
yeah, it's like a real blindside for him. And I think, I don't know, as someone who has family members with disabilities, it's like really annoying when people do that to them because
Right.
it's like, hey, still a person. Like
Yeah.
they're actually smarter than you most of the time, so chill. But I think it's really good too to have Fitz sort of be like, hey, I'm actually focusing on this situation and more aware of like
Right.
not downplaying people.
He's just different. And Fitz reflects on that a little bit too, thinking, different, I reflected, as a horse was different from a cat, and they both were different from a man, but not lesser. Almost I could sense how his mind reached in another direction from mine, attaching significance to items I dismissed, even as he dismissed whole areas that anchored my reality. So Fitz can grasp here that Thick is attaching significance to different things than he is, so that shifts their perspectives. So he does seem alien to him, right?
Yeah.
It's not like another person that he can instantly connect to because their viewpoint is so radically different from his, but it's just different. That's it.
And it's not impossible. Just like Fitz can communicate to animals through the wit and find the commonalities, he's going to be able to communicate with a person who has a different viewpoint because that's how compassion works, I guess.
Yeah.
But I think it's it like makes sense for Fitz to make the connection with the animals because of his connection with wit, right? Like,
Right.
because he sees the intricacies of how animals think. And so I think it's interesting then to have that be how he explains to himself that like just because a cat and a dog are different doesn't mean
One's better than the other.
or one's so I think that's a good little like we're just thinking different ways.
Thick gathers his stuff and leaves, not before flinging one last insult Fitz's way, calling him a dog stinker. And Fitz then addresses Chade, saying like he doesn't like me and he knows that I'm witted. Almost sulkily I added, Prince Dutiful didn't meet me in Verity's tower this morning. He had said he would. My remarks seemed to go past the old man. The Queen wants to see you, right away. He was neatly, if not elegantly, attired in a simple robe of blue this morning, with soft fur slippers on his feet. Did they ache from dancing? So Fitz kind of like, they're having two conversations here. Chade obviously is focused on the Queen's request and command, and doesn't seem to care about Fitz's concerns about Thick.
Right. And I mean, to be fair, Fitz is probably being extra whiny.
Right. Yeah.
Fitz is being sulky because he got stood up by the prince.
And had like 3 hours of sleep total, maybe.
Yes,
part of that was dozing in a chair.
Yeah. So he's a little bit crabby. So I can only imagine that Jade's sort of also crabby.
Well, yeah, because he's also hungover, I'm sure, and stayed up later than Fitz.
And the Queen is asking for Fitz now. And yeah, I don't know. I think it's funny because Fitz is aghast that Chade is not really giving him the attention, but I think it's just a mix of two people being crabby.
But Fitz doesn't really let the Thick conversation go fully, just saying he didn't seem surprised to see me enter from here because remember, Fitz wanted to keep all of the secrets of Chade's room a secret.
Yes.
All of the secret doors. And Fitz entered through one of them that he didn't think Thick knew about. And Chade says, I do not think he is bright enough to be surprised by something like that. I doubt that he even noticed it. I considered and decided that it might be true. To him, it might have no significance. So I highlighted that because it's not agreeing. I really liked it because it's not agreeing with Chade that he's not bright enough to understand it.
Right.
But it's piggybacking on his own previous thought of Thick might not have attached any significance to where I'm coming in and out of.
Right.
Like, that might not matter to his mind, so I guess.
Right.
If Jade trusts it, fine. What either of them don't know is that the piebalds care.
Yes. Yeah. I think it's rereading it makes it extra frustrating because
we know what it is.
Yeah, well, we know what's happening, but also Fitz is on to something here, and Jade is just not biting, which is to me unshade-like because he is usually so like such a master of spies, so like untrustworthy of everything and everyone, that it's crazy to me that this is slipping by. But I don't know. It makes me wonder a little bit too if Thick's skilling in some capacity is also affecting Jade.
Definitely could.
Because if Jade were to come upon him somewhere he wasn't supposed to be, and Jade was kind of mad, who's to say Thick couldn't skill at him, you don't see me, and
Right.
I wasn't here, and then he just doesn't remember. And so to Jade, nothing's odd, because even if something was, maybe it got skilled out of his memory.
Yeah.
So there's no way to know. So that could be another possible answer, because I know I'm being harsh on the whole, like, maybe he's slipping. But again, I think I'm looking out for those instances of like the telltale signs of things going downhill, which I know is something that happens at least in the final trilogy. But I think there are things that happen in this trilogy as well that are due to Jade's lack of keeping things together as he once did. It's just age.
And the queen wanted to see me because she told me so, he replied a bit testily. After that, I kept silent and followed him. I suspected his head throbbed as mine did. And he talks about like how Jade definitely has an antidote to being hungover, but it takes a very long time and is quite hard to prepare. So sometimes it's just better to grit through it rather than try to prepare it while hungover.
Yeah, which is so valid. I feel like a bad hangover, I'm not doing anything either. So
right.
I can only imagine having to like continue on with my job as the palace, like at a palace, being like, oh, I'll go get the people who need to be gotten.
Right. So they go to Kettricken's room the same way that they did before. They come out into the privy, the bathroom, and then into like an antechamber outside of that. And she looks up and they both greet her. Good morning, my queen. And she held out her hands in welcome, gesturing us in. The last time I had been here, an anxious Kettricken had awaited us in an austere chamber, her thoughts centered solely on her missing son. This time, the room displayed her handiwork, and we get a little description of a nice, relatively cozy and yet minimal decorated room, but one that feels used, or at least meticulously sculpted by Kettricken's design.
Yeah, in fact, the design and the design choices that are made in this room brings Fitz to mind of the mountain home.
Yeah, of her home in the mountains specifically.
Kettricken's home in the mountain, that it just feels very much her.
She had also arranged a small table of food. Hot tea exhaled from a fat pot. I noticed there were only 2 cups, as Kettricken said, "Thank you for bringing Fitzchivalry here, Lord Jade." It was a dismissal, smoothly done. Jade bowed again, perhaps a bit more stiffly than he had the first time, and retreated by way of the privy chamber. I was left standing alone before my queen, wondering what this was all about. So Jade's, is definitely going to obey, but he's like, oh, come on, I want to be a part of everything.
Yes, he wants to know what's going on. He's nosy, I get it.
Yeah.
I would also be annoyed if I was sent away from my friends talking, like, okay, I guess.
That's an interesting question. Do you think Jade considers any of the royals friends? I think he would definitely consider Shrewd a friend.
Yeah.
Because he's his brother, and they had talks all the time, he said, and they played games together. But I don't know if he would consider Kettricken a friend.
Maybe I don't know more if like a work colleague.
Yeah, I don't know if Jade considers almost anybody a friend.
Yeah, I guess friend is a strong word. Definitely family. I think he sees Kettricken as family.
Right.
Not as much as he would if she were an actual Farseer.
Yeah.
But I think in a way that in his own way, he's doing what he can to protect her as much as he is the Farseer line, which I think is a big thing for him. because yes, he ultimately wants a Farseer to take the throne, but I'm sure there are ways in which he could have done that belittled Kettricken along the way, and I'm sure
Yeah.
he did not choose those ways.
Right.
So I think
Yeah.
there's respect for sure.
I don't doubt that he has, ultimate loyalty to the Six Duchies and the Farseers, and therefore Kettricken as well. But friend, like you said, is a strong word.
It's hard because Kettricken's also, well, first and foremost, the queen, but second, way younger than him. And so, and so is Fitz. But Fitz is like his kid.
And Chade has been alone. Like, he's been within walls for 30 years or so. So, like, maybe 20 years if we're being generous there. So he's used to being alone. So I don't know how much he can have friends, besides
I don't
Shrewd.
even think it's that he was alone for so long. I think he's just so distrusting that he couldn't have.
That's fair.
But he's less distrusting than Fitz in a lot of ways. So.
That's also true.
So I feel like maybe in his own way, they are friends. The same way that he's probably friends with Lady Patience. Like,
I was going to say, I think there are some people that he would call friends, but I don't think you and I would consider them to be friends. Like, I think he would call Patience a friend of his.
Yeah.
I think he might call Kettricken a friend. I think he might call the Fool a friend.
Yeah.
But none of those other people would say, yeah, he's a good friend of mine.
I feel like he would think like Burek is his friend. I think Burek hates him. Like, I don't. And Jada's like, yes, my good friend Burek.
I don't think Chade is delusional about that. I think he would be like, we have mutual respect because we both want the same thing for the Farseers. But he also dislikes me because we go about it different ways.
Yeah.
And I'm more unsavory, and maybe he blames me for, chivalry and things like that.
I feel like Chade is just lawful neutral and Burek is lawful good.
Yeah.
And so they butt heads on that. But Chade is enough of a neutral to understand that, like, he's doing what he can, I don't know.
I don't even know if I would consider, well, yeah, I guess. I was going to say I don't consider him lawful, but since he follows the royalty directives, it's technically the law of the land.
Yes.
So it is lawful.
It's like he has a very strong moral compass.
Yeah.
I don't think it's calibrated correctly, but it is strong to him.
No,
and
that's true. That's true.
I don't know. That's how I would classify him. But
anyway, and that was an aside.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
A little tidbit. But I think he's friends with Kettricken as much as you can be friends with the monarch that you were helping.
Right. Yeah.
And somebody who's
he's
younger
a little
than you.
miffed at the dismissal.
Yeah.
As you said, he's nosy.
Yes, he's very nosy. He likes knowing things.
But as Chade leaves, she kind of breaks down the formality of the situation and says, "Please, Fitz," and gestures to the seats. I took my place opposite her. I studied her. We were nearly of an age, but her years rode far more graciously than mine did me. Where the passage of time had scarred me, it had brushed her, leaving a tracery of lines at the corners of her eyes and mouth. She wore a green gown today, and it set off the gold of her hair and awakened jade gleams in her eyes. Her dress was simple, as was the plaiting of her hair. She wore no jewelry or cosmetics. And she did not indulge in any kind of ceremony as she poured tea for me and set my cup before me. "There are cakes too, if you wish," she said, and I did, for I had not yet broken my fast that day. Yet something in her voice, an edge of hoarseness, made me set down the cup I'd started to lift. She was looking aside from me, avoiding my eyes. I saw the frantic fluttering of her eyelashes, and then a tear brimmed over and splashed down her cheek. "Kettricken?" I asked in alarm. What had gone awry that I did not know about? Had she discovered the Narcheska's reluctance to wed her son? Had there been another wit threat? She caught her breath raggedly and suddenly looked me full in the face. "Oh, Fitz, I did not call you here for this. I meant to keep this to myself, but I am so sorry. For all of us. When first I heard, I already knew. I woke that dawn, feeling as if something had broken, something important." She tried to clear her throat and could not. She croaked out her words, tears coursing down her face. "I could not put my finger on the loss, but when Chade brought your tidings to me, I knew instantly. I felt him go, Fitz. I felt Nighteyes leave us." And then a sob racked her, and she dropped her face into her hands and wept like a devastated child. I wanted to flee. I had almost succeeded in mastering my grief, and now she tore the wound afresh. For a time, I sat woodenly, numbed by pain. Why couldn't she just leave it alone?
So before going further, I want to pause so that we can talk about the fact that Kettricken felt Nighteyes die.
Yeah, she had a little bit of a bond with him as well. She was Pack, right?
Yeah.
That's what Nighteyes said, and we get more details of how Nighteyes was a rock for her in Assassin's Quest that Fitz didn't know.
Yes. But I think it's really interesting because we know that was always sort of mad at Fitz in a way that he didn't go with Kettricken, that he didn't
Right.
pick Kettricken, and that he liked Kettricken a lot. I think that's something that is known to the reader before this moment, but it's very clear that there was something special there outside of what we knew because, I mean, she's able to feel his death. That's crazy. It brings a lot of questions to me of how wit works because Nighteyes is bonded to Fitz, so how did someone not bonded feel the loss of Nighteyes? Is it because, like you said, they are pack, and because it's a pack animal, it's different rules? He's able to give his bond to others as well in a way.
I don't think it has to be as deep as that. I think it's more so like a wit partner. Wit partners choose to bond each other, right? They actively make
Mhm.
that choice, they agree, and similar to the skill, I believe that repeated reaching out or communication, because we know Nighteyes was like talking to Kettricken a
Yeah.
lot, trying to comfort her and helping her hunt and stuff like that. I think that repeated communication and reaching out kind of forges a connection just like skill use does.
Okay.
And maybe it's not a conscious choice to do so, but it is a connection that will stay with you. As kind of the theme of magic in these books that Robin Hobb has stated is that beings close to one another mingle essences, right?
Yeah.
Things kind of cross over between you if you become that close to one another.
That's
So I
fair.
think that's something that happened with Nighteyes and Kettricken.
That's fair. I was also wondering if potentially Kettricken carrying a child of Fitz's biologically, obviously,
Right.
if that is somehow connected as well, because we know that blood transcends the wit
That
bonds.
definitely could be. Yeah.
And like, I mean, that's kind of a tinfoil hat theory that, like, because she had Fitz's kid, she also had a stronger connection to
Both
Nidus
Dutiful
because of
and
it.
Nettle can see Wolf Father, you know?
Yes, that's what I'm saying. So I'm like, maybe there's something there as well that it's like,
Yeah.
I mean, obviously she has her own relationship with him, but
This
maybe
this
that's what
does speak a little to, I think, questions that we had before in the previous book that we opened up to all of you listening, and some of you wrote in about, where we asked if somebody could have more than one bond.
Yes.
And I think we decided on yes, it was possible, but like I don't think anybody would want to.
Right. It'd be too crowded.
Right. So like obviously because the cat had two partners.
Yes.
Because Paladine was still alive technically and probably bonded in some way to the cat still.
Right.
But this goes to show like a little bit more healthy of a thing that can happen in the wild that isn't two purposeful bonds. I'm sure Nighteyes couldn't feel what Kettricken was feeling
Right.
when they were living in the cabin or anything, but there was some sort of lingering connection there.
Yeah. Well, either way, Fitz is super uncomfortable with this. And I think it stems from at first feeling like she doesn't get it. And now I have to be subjected to grief that is superficial comparatively to what I'm going through.
Yeah, just like ignore me, everyone. I don't deserve your love. Like
Yes.
I wanted to ignore this pain and I was almost there.
Yeah. And it's hard, but she doesn't sort of care in this moment about how he's reacting. And I mean that in a kind way.
Yeah.
She's sort of purging her own sadness. And so she does continue on saying, the years pass, but you never forget a friend like him. She was speaking to herself, her head bowed into her hands. Her words came muffled and thick with tears. I'd never felt so close to an animal before we traveled together, but in the long hours of walking, he was always there, ranging ahead and coming back and then checking behind us. He was like a shield for me, for when he came trotting back, I always knew that he had gone before us and was satisfied that no danger awaited us. Without his assurance, I am sure my own poor courage would have failed 100 times. When we began our journey, he seemed just a part of you. But then I got to know him for himself, his bravery and tenacity, even his humor. There were times, especially there at the quarry, when we went off to hunt and he alone seemed to understand my feelings. It was not just that I could hold tight and cry into his fur and know he would never betray my weakness. It was that he rejoiced in my strength too. When we hunted together and I made a kill, I could feel his approval, like a fierceness that said I deserved to survive and that I had earned my place in this world. She drew breath raggedly. I think I will always miss him, and I didn't even get to see him again before. And she trails off. Really sad.
Yeah. And this is what you were kind of speaking on before, where Fitz usually closes himself off to people expressing like, oh, I'm so sorry for your loss. But
Yes.
this is Kettricken, as the title says, sharing her sorrow. It is
Yes.
it's the same feeling, maybe not the same depth as Fitz is going through, but the same feelings that he has. So he's able to kind of open up that dam a little bit. And he thinks right now is like, wow, I truly did not know that they were that close, and that happened. Nighteyes kept his secrets as well. I had sensed faint questing from her when she meditated. I had often suspected that her mountain connection with the natural world would have a less kindly name in the Six Duchies. But she and my wolf? He spoke to you? You heard Nighteyes in your mind? She shook her head. No, but I felt him in my heart when I was numb to all else.
Yeah, so this is really big. I think part of the reason why Fitz is then able to actually grieve is because up until this point, like you said, it's been sort of more of a superficial, I'm sorry for your loss. And while hearing I'm sorry for your loss is fine and nice, and obviously, what else do you say? I think there's also a big difference when you're grieving when somebody else is grieving with you. Like
Right.
they
Yeah.
knew that person too, they felt that loss. And so I think here it's just permission almost to be upset at the loss, be sad, grieve the good thing that you're losing. Like
Yeah.
it's very rare that you get to share that with somebody. And so it's really great that Fitz, who needs this for sure, in this moment has someone who understands and is wanting to grieve with him and is giving him permission to grieve as well. And he goes on after she says, no, he never spoke to me, but I knew him in my heart. And he goes to comfort her, he believes, is what his intentions were.
Pat her on her shoulders.
Just pat her on the shoulder. And as he comes over to her, she stands up and hugs him, and she's sobbing. And then all of a sudden, he's letting it all out too.
Whether I would or no, my own tears welled. Then her grief, not sympathy for me, but true grief at Nighteyes' death, gave permission to mine, and my mourning ripped free. All the anguish I had been trying to conceal from those who could not understand the depth of loss I felt suddenly demanded vent. I think I only realized that our roles had changed when she pushed me gently down into her chair. She offered me her tiny, useless handkerchief and then gently kissed my brow and both my cheeks. I could not stop crying. She stood by me, my head cradled against her breast, and she stroked my hair and let me weep. She spoke brokenly of my wolf and all he had been to her, words I scarcely heard. She did not try to stop my tears or tell me that everything would be all right. She knew it would not. But when my weeping finally had run its course, she stooped and kissed me on my mouth, a healing kiss. Her lips were salt with her own tears. Then she stood straight again. And I know we like joke about like, Fitz, you're missing the signs. She's into you. I don't think this is that moment. I mean, it is like,
what is a healing kiss? What does that mean?
Right.
Why is what?
It's just funny because like this happens and I'm like, Fitz, come on, bud. Yeah, she's my platonic best friend that we share our sorrows about. But then later she does like compare him to like, yeah, you're like my brother Rurisk.
But also, okay, hear me out. Maybe this is tinfoil, but I feel like whenever later she's like, you were like my brother Rurisk, that's how I feel about you. I think she was surprised at the emotion she was feeling for Fitz and felt like it was, number one, not reciprocated, but number two, a thing that like is bad because of Verity. Like there's
because they feel like family. So
yes, so I feel like she's trying to like restructure those boundaries in her own mind of like,
that's fair.
You're my brother. You're as close to a brother. We'll get there, but like, I feel like this was sort of like a heat of the moment. I'm kissing him, and Fitz is like, oh yes, the healing kiss that all platonic friends do. I don't know. I never hear him talk about Chade giving him a healing kiss, is all I'll say.
Your poor hair, she murmured and smoothed it to my head. Oh, my dear Fitz, how hard we used you, both of you, and I can never... She seemed to feel the uselessness of words. But, well, drink your tea while it is still hot. And the tea is still steaming, so Fitz is like, wow, this only took a short amount of time, but it felt like forever.
Right. And interestingly, Fitz then sits down at what he calls Kettricken's chair, and for the rest of the chapter, he keeps making mention of he's at her chair, at her spot, using her teacup, and she's sitting in his spot using his teacup. And it's very interesting to me because we're never described the type of setup that this table has, but I'm not picturing one is a throne, one isn't.
Right.
So for him to be so specific about like, this is her chair, and then it goes into a conversation where he's sort of grilling her on the choices she's made as the ruler in his absence is really interesting because I really think it sets up this image of the role reversal and also just another way of Kettricken sort of trying to give Fitz his due while they're in private and giving that respect to the Farseer line, even though in my mind these are just two chairs that are the exact same.
It's just,
but I think it like I think it's a really cool narrative way to lean into the fact that Fitz is now the one that has the power, that's like sort of asking the questions, and she's sort of deferring to him in a way. Mm-hmm. But then at the end, he gives that back to her, and he gives her the reassurance of like, yeah, you made good choices.
Right. When I took a breath, it seemed to fill my lungs more deeply than it had in days. She took my cup. When I looked up at the queen, she gave me a small smile. Her tears had left her pale eyes outlined in red, and her nose was pink. She had never looked lovelier to me. Totally platonic. So we shared some time. The tea was a spice tea, friendly and enlivening. And there was a lot of great food that's described here. And Fitz says that they're eating in silence. They're just enjoying each other's company. And he gets up and refills the teapot once. And after a time of silence, she leaned back in her chair and said quietly, "So you see, this supposed taint in my son comes from me."
Okay, so just as an aside, I feel like the way that she's bringing this up is a thing that Luke accuses me of doing in our everyday life, of sort of starting the conversation in the middle. Because it feels like this is not like the start to a sentence. This
feels
is
like 20 minutes later, and then she starts right here.
Yeah, like she's been thinking in her head a little bit of a few sentences, and now she's like, so as you see. So I just thought that was a funny thing to
Fitz followed her line of thinking, though, because he's like, I was wondering if she was going to make that connection. And Fitz immediately has his reply saying, like, there's been witted farseers before. Like, it's...
myself is among them.
Myself among them.
Kettricken then pushes back against that idea of it being Farseer line, because she said, yes, but you come from the Mountain Kingdom as well.
And
your
says, like,
mother,
most likely you're from the Mountain Kingdom, because I can see the, fair coloring and how easily you picked up the language and where you got dropped off. We don't know for sure.
We don't know for sure, but she said there's a pretty good chance that
Yeah.
you are also mountain bred. And so, of course, you have wit.
It's possible that she was the source of your wit. Perhaps mountain blood carries it.
I walked precariously close to the edge of the truth as I said, I consider it just as likely that Dutiful could have gotten the wit from his father as his mother. But it matters little where it came from, I ruthlessly interrupted my queen. I wanted to divert this conversation. The boy has it, and that is what we must deal with. And I think this is really interesting, especially the starting with there have been witted seers before Dutiful, myself included.
Yeah.
It almost feels like Fitz wants to tell her. Like he wants to have the conversation of like, hey, technically Dutiful is my kid. So it's probably my fault. And I think it's stemming from wanting to comfort his friend and also not believing that Kettricken could ever be at fault for anything.
Right.
But it's really interesting because we know that Kettricken didn't know for sure until like this sort of era. And then later she admits that.
Right.
So I'm wondering if this is sort of the puzzle piece that gets things moving.
It could be. It could be.
But because I think she's really smart, and he did basically just spell it out that like, hey, we both have wit, and who knows, maybe it's from his father and his mother. Ooh, he does push on and just sort of be like, we have to talk about it and what's going forward. Mm-hmm. And he says that, you know, at first it horrified him that Dutiful wanted to learn more about the wit, but he has decided that maybe Dutiful was correct and he should be teaching Dutiful as much as he can about both magics to keep him as safe as possible.
Her face lit. Then you have agreed to teach him. Truly, I was out of practice at intrigue. Or perhaps, I reflected wryly, over the years my lady had learned that subtlety and gentleness could win her secrets that even Chade's deviousness had not pried from me. The accuracy with which she read my face seemed to support the second theory. I will say nothing of it to the prince. If he wishes it to remain private between you, then so it shall be. When will you start? At the prince's earliest convenience, I replied evasively. I would not tattle that he had already missed his first lesson.
You would tattle the Chade, but it's a step too far to tell Kettricken. You can't tell
his mom. Yeah, come on.
I'm telling your mom. I would. I don't know. Hey, dude.
Your mom poisoned me. She owes me. I'm going to tell your mom.
I'm telling your mom. We're friends. Platonic solely.
She nodded and says, clears her throat and kind of becomes a little bit more formal here. Fitz chivalry. The reason I summoned you here was my intent to make things right for you, as much as we can. In so many ways, I cannot treat you as you deserve, but whatever we can do for your comfort or pleasure, I desire that we do. You masquerade as Lord Golden's servant, and I understand all the reasons for this. Still, it chagrins me that a prince of your bloodline should go unacknowledged amongst his own folk. So, what can we do? Would you like other chambers prepared for you, ones that you could reach privately and where you could have things arranged for your comfort? No, I replied quickly, and hearing the brusqueness of my reply, I added, I think things are best as they are now. I am as comfortable as I need to be. I would live here, but I could not make it a home. It was useless to try. That private thought jolted me. Home, I reflected, was a place shared. The loft over the stable with Burrick, or the cottage with Nighteyes and Hap. And the chambers that I now shared with the fool? No, there was too much caution in both of us, too much privacy preserved, too much constraint imposed by the roles we played. So he is thinking here and doesn't catch all that Kettricken is saying and catches up with her a little bit later after this. But this is Fitz thinking that I don't have a home in Buckkeep. And we talked about this before because he mentioned that he was going home in a couple of chapters.
Yes.
When he was going back up to Buckkeep. But when he's actively thinking about a home, he's like, no, I need to share that with somebody. And the Fool and I are too private of people. And also with the roles that we have to play, it's not comfortable to call this a home.
Yeah, it's really interesting because I think this is such a big deviation from what he has thought before, especially since the death of Nighteyes, where he has been calling Buckkeep home, and he has been referring it as going home. And it seems like there is comfort in being here. For him to then, in this moment, turn around and be like, no, this can't be home. I'm wondering if it's part of his whole ordeal of like he's not allowed to be happy, and so it's
Could
getting
be.
too close to comfort, and so he's got to push it away. I don't know.
I was thinking it kind of had to go hand in hand with the floodgates opening with Nighteyes' grief before he could be like, okay, yeah, now I'm home. I'm ignoring Nighteyes' death and the pain it causes me. I'll be useful here. This is my home now. And now he's kind of exercised of that grief a little bit and could like truly grieve. Nighteyes is like, well, I need to share my life with somebody, and this is not it so far.
Yeah, that's fair.
Just a little bit more introspection, maybe. I don't know. But either way, he kind of thinks about that and then catches up with Kettricken as she's saying, arranged for a monthly allowance. After this, Chade will see you receive it, but I wanted you to have this today. And she sets a purse before him, a little bag of cloth embroidered with stylized flowers. It clinked sturdily as she placed it on the table. I flushed in spite of myself and could not hide it. I looked up to find her cheeks equally pink. It does feel awkward, doesn't it? Make no mistake in this, Fitzchivalry. This is not pay for what you have done for me and mine. No coin could ever pay for that. But a man has expenses, and it is not fitting that you should have to ask for what you need. I understood her, but I could not forbear from saying, you and yours are also mine, my queen. And you are right. No amount of coin could buy what I do for them. Another woman might have taken it as a rebuke. My words brought a gleam of fierce pride to Kettricken's eyes, and she smiled at me. I rejoice in the kinship we share, Fitzchivalry. Rurisk was my only brother. No one can ever replace him. But you have come as close to that as it is possible for anyone to do. And at that, I thought we understood each other very well indeed. It warmed me that she claimed me through our kinship, through the bloodlines I shared with her husband and her son. So that's the comment I was talking about before.
Yes, that she very much friend zones him.
Brother zones him.
Brother zones
Not quite. It's saying like you are as close to a brother as I could get without having my actual brother around.
Yeah. I don't know. It's really interesting. I still think it's sort of coming from a place of like resetting boundaries after a moment of passion, if you can call it that. It just
Shared grief, empathy,
yes,
sympathy.
which does it's heightened emotions, right?
Yeah.
And it's sort of just like reaffirming the like we're
cool.
Yeah,
like,
we're good. That was just a healing kiss. Don't even worry about it.
Just the classic healing kiss.
Just a normal healing kiss like everybody gives. No, but it is also really interesting. It's very humorous to me because Fitz always describes Kettricken as not like other girls, essentially. And it's so funny to me. I don't know why. It just feels like he is so clearly infatuated with her and she's just so perfect. She's everything. She's so different from everyone else and she just gets him in a way that nobody else does. He's so glad to have a sister like her.
After she just sobbed and is weeping messily. Oh, she's the most lovely I've ever seen her in my life.
She doesn't need cosmetics like everyone else. She doesn't wear jewels. She's a jewel on her own. It's just, there's like, I don't know why I find it so humorous, but it is a little bit humorous to me. I think especially because he is so adamant on doubling down that he feels nothing for her. Like not even
partially
like
forged as well. So
I mean, yeah, but
I think his brain is just so like King Verity married Kettricken, barrier there, cannot go. Like,
yeah,
you know, it's just like, nope.
And I don't want to like act like there can't be platonic friends between a woman and a man.
Right.
For sure there can be. I'm just saying I don't think this is it. Like,
not all of them have healing kisses.
Yeah. All I'm saying is this is giving Burek and King Chivalry where everybody's like, nah, they were just really close, but I bet you they were giving healing kisses. And that's my own personal headcanon. But anyway, Fitz is sort of really glad to have Kettricken in this moment. Like Kettricken gets him in a way that so few others do. I think Beloved has a lot of moments like this with him as well. And I am team Molly and Fitz, to be fair. However, this chapter, all I can think is that Fitz fumbled a baddie. He could have had Kettricken. Like,
True.
It's so crazy to me. And I do think that they would be good. And it makes me really sad that they will never be together, because I really do think Kettricken gets him in a way that's really imperative to the mental health of Fitz,
Yeah.
because she sees him in a way that makes him feel seen. And I think other people also see him, but they don't communicate effectively what they're seeing. And so it's easier for Fitz to sort of push aside their love and care because it's not as direct as Kettricken is.
Right.
And Kettricken is so very direct and so open and willing to be open about her feelings and what she's thinking, that I think it's really good. And it makes me sad that they'll never have that relationship, because I think it could be good for Fitz. I don't know if it'd be good for Kettricken, but probably. I don't know. He loves her, so she wouldn't want for love.
Fitz is kind of comparing this relationship to King Shrewd, and how King Shrewd has Fitz's loyalty through the pin and through like the deal that he made with him. And he thinks King Shrewd had chosen to invoke his claim on me as the right of my king rather than as my grandfather. Now, Kettricken, my queen, claimed me first as kin and second as brother. She struck no bargains. She would have scowled at the thought of that any setting of terms to my loyalty was necessary. So just kind of contrasting the two there. And while he's not disloyal to the thought of King Shrewd either, it's just
Right.
the different ways of doing it, and he really appreciates this,
Yes, I do.
especially in the moment.
It does make me wonder if Shrewd had gone about recruiting Fitz a different way, of being like, hey, you are my family and I do see you as family. If that would have changed the dynamic, if at all. Maybe not. I don't know. It feels like Fitz thinks he would have been loyal to his family no matter what. I disagree. I feel like family, and in his youth, family wasn't enough of a tie. I think now it is, because
Yeah.
he's sort of been trained into believing that, unfortunately. But I don't think at the time it would have been enough
I
to
agree.
tie him.
And there's reasons that Shrewd could not. Like, I totally understand Shrewd's point of
Right,
view
yeah.
there too, but yeah, I agree with that. It's what Fitz needs now, though.
Yes,
and
it
he
is.
really appreciates that. Kettricken goes on to say, I wish to tell my son who you truly are. And Fitz is like, oh, this was nice, but no.
Yeah. Please know, my queen, that knowledge is a danger and a burden. Why put it upon him? Why deny that knowledge to the Farseer heir? A long moment of silence held between us. Then I said, perhaps it is time, or perhaps in time.
Yes.
And I was relieved when she nodded. Then she took that from me when she said, I will know when the time is right, which is so funny. It's very like,
She just guaranteed, like, okay, I will tell him, but not right now out of respect for your wishes.
yeah, okay, I'll give you a week.
Right.
Like, hey, take all the time you need as long as that time is within my time frame.
Mhm.
No, it's very funny. And so Fitz is sort of reeling from this whole moment of like wholesome healing and a nice little moment between him and his friend. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, back to reality. The Farseer heir should get to know Fitz Chivalry is alive, and
True.
that's you.
Yeah.
And I think she's right. I think it's good. I understand his hesitancy, even though I think most of it stems from his own fear and trauma. I think there is good reason to worry about the danger it puts on Dutiful to know the truth.
Yeah.
However, I think he's proven himself old enough to handle that. Like, he has not been
Maybe.
making good decisions.
It's
But
been like 3 days removed from when he
I mean, yeah, but I think he's old enough, and it would like bring more connection between them.
Yeah. Yeah. Kettricken brings up King Shrewd herself and brings up that Fitz wore that tiny silver and ruby pin, and gives Fitz a little pin of her own, saying, I want you to wear this in the same spirit. It was a tiny thing. A little silver fox with a winking green eye. It sat alertly, its brush curled around its feet. The image was fastened to a long pin. I studied it carefully. It was perfect. This is the work of your own hands. I am flattered that you recall that I like working silver. Yes, it is. And the fox is that which you made my symbol here at Buckkeep. I unlaced my blue servant shirt and opened it. While she watched, I thrust the pin into the facing of the shirt. From the outside, nothing showed, but when I fastened my shirt again, I could feel the tiny fox against my breast. I cleared my throat. You honor me, and as you have said, you hold me as close as your brother. Then I shall ask a question that I am sure Rurisk would have asked you. I shall be as bold as to demand why you keep amongst your ladies one who once attempted to take your life. Yes, and that of your unborn child. So now Fitz gets around to questions, as you said before, kind of asking questions of how Kettricken has been doing in his absence.
Yes.
And his most pressing one is about Rosemary.
Yes. And before we get there, I do want to point out Fitz should be wearing his charm right now. And he just opened his collar, fastened something on it, and then closed it again. But very notably, there was no mention of difference from Kettricken. There is no mention of her being affected by the charm. The charm isn't even brought up. And I bring that up myself to point out that I think that she already, first of all, loves him and is very favorable towards him. I don't think a charm to make her like him is going to work because he's already there. But it should work.
Because it affects Beloved too.
Yes, but that was my next point, is that theoretically, she already loves him, whatever. But it did work on Beloved. And so there should be some slight change in demeanor even.
Maybe he's not wearing it. I don't know. I don't know why, but
he's always wearing it. And so I don't know. It just made me think, I'm like, is it that Fitz isn't recognizing those signs from Kettricken because what she's doing is already sign enough that you know what I mean? Is he not?
Or he closed up his collar again and it's not affecting it. Maybe affected him for that period of time of putting on the pin.
Or, hear me out, tinfoil hats on, perhaps it is because what Fitz is seeing in the others is an openness to him that Kettricken is already showing him, right?
Yeah, that could be true.
With Beloved, yes, Beloved has feelings for Fitz and loves Fitz, but it is so guarded.
Yeah.
Yes, it's so guarded and closed off that the magic brings that more to the forefront in a way that he can't hide. Whereas Kettricken is never trying to hide how fond she is of Fitz and how much she cares.
Yeah.
So that's just a fun little thing I noticed and theory I had on why it's not mentioned that she reacts in any way.
Yeah, I like that. Fitz brings up Rosemary without naming her, and Kettricken takes a moment to think. He's like, oh, right, you're talking about Rosemary. Like, she totally forgot the past, basically.
Yes.
And Fitz grills her on this, and Kettricken says that, when I look at her, I do not even think of that. When Regal and his household returned here at the end of the Red Ship War, Rosemary was amongst the train. Her mother had died, and she had been neglected. At first, I could not abide to have either her or Regal in my presence, but there were appearances to preserve, and his abject apologies and vows of loyalty to the unborn heir and me were useful. It served to unite the six duchies, for with him he brought the nobility of Tilth and Pharaoh, and we needed that support desperately. It would have been so easy for the six duchies to follow the Red Ship War with a civil strife. There are so many differences among the duchies. But Regal's influence was enough to sway his nobles back to allegiance to me. Then Regal died so strangely and so violently. It was unavoidable that there were mutterings that I had had him murdered in vengeance for old wrongs. Chade advised me strongly that I must make gestures amongst his nobles to bind them to me. And then she kind of goes on, but I want to talk about the response of Regal coming back, what Fitz did to Regal.
Yes.
And it helped so much. Like, that little choice actually secured the future of the Six Duchies as well. And yet, in the end of Assassin's Quest, it's basically Fitz acting out in revenge.
Yes.
And just, like, hey, this is what I'm going to do. And it's kind of ambiguous in the book, if I remember correctly, where it seems like Fitz might kill him.
Yes.
And then we hear later how Regal goes back and he's so loyal.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, that was the perfect move.
It was. And I think it goes back to Fitz being that capital C catalyst, right?
Yeah.
Like, without Fitz, there is no Farseer line. He continuously makes choices that are in the benefit of keeping the Farseers alive and therefore ensuring dragons come back. And it is really crazy to think about how one little action from Fitz has such a big effect. And now we get to see what that big effect is, which is that Tilth and Pharaoh stay in the Six Duchies.
Mhm.
And Kettricken has the chance to not buy their loyalty, but kind of buy their loyalty.
Right.
And what she goes on to talk about how one of the things she does is she put Lady Patience in the place of Regal's cousin,
Lord Bright.
Lord
Yeah.
Bright.
We kind of learn how Lord Bright is still a favored noble and
Yes.
was still invited to like that betrothal ceremony.
Yes. And so Lady Patience is now in his place at Tradeford, and she, because she wanted strong support for herself there specifically, but for the other holdings, she distributes them judiciously among the others that were most needed, which Fitz then points out that doesn't seem like a good way to get them on your side. You're giving away the Duke's holdings to other people. And
Yeah, Lord Bright's holdings, basically.
yeah, you're giving away a Lord Bright's birthright. And she says that she recompensed him in other ways, and the most strongly of those ways is that she taught him to be a duke.
Yeah. I strove him to not make him only content with his lot, but a better ruler than he otherwise would have been. I saw to his schooling in things other than fine wine and dress. Most of his years as Duke of Pharaoh have been spent right here in Buckkeep. Patience manages his Tradeford holdings for him, probably far better than he would have himself, for she has the common sense to appoint people who know what they are doing, and she sends reports to him monthly, far more detailed than he relishes, but I insist he go over them with one of my treasury men, not only to be sure he understands them, but also that he must profess he is satisfied with how they fare, and I think that now he genuinely is. I suspect his Duchess has something to do with that, I hazarded. Kettricken had the grace to flush slightly, and now she explains how Shade suggested that maybe having a wife would also settle him down a little bit more, and she and Shade selected some women and announced like, hey, Lord Bright's gonna marry from these people, and then
Yeah.
but she's all like, but Lord Bright chose his own, like,
Yeah, like she made it known that she would be happy if one of those girls were to marry Lord Bright,
Right.
and Lord Bright got to pick which one, but it was from a curated list.
Right.
But yeah, I think it's really interesting here because we do get a really good view of Kettricken's leadership style, because she very easily could have just dismissed Lord Bright and not cared,
Right.
and sort of divvied up his land to people loyal to her. And instead, she sort of made him better, right? She has that mountain mentality of being there for all of her people, whether they like her or not. And so she made her country stronger by ensuring that one of the people, the nobility in charge of leading a section of that country, is a good ruler.
Right.
She taught him how to rule. And it's really important that when he had a problem with it, there wasn't a ton he could do, because he was so bad at ruling Buck whenever he was given charge of that by Regal.
Right.
And he did not inherit any of Regal's charisma. So it's not like he had a bunch of people who would feel sorry for him when he did so poorly.
Exactly, yeah. And so Kettricken is describing like how Shade picked out the young women with the requisite qualities, and Kettricken announced like, hey, yeah, it would be so nice if one of these ladies married Lord Bright. And then she says, the competition spread rapidly amongst the chosen women, but Lord Bright selected his own bride from amongst them. I but saw that he had the opportunity to choose someone who was tractable and not too ambitious, a daughter of someone loyal to the queen. I filled in the rest. She met my eyes squarely. Yes. She caught a small breath. Do you fault me, Fitzchivalry? You who were my first instructor in managing the intrigues of the court to my advantage? I smiled at her. No, in truth, I am proud of you. And from the look on Lord Bright's face at last night's festivities, he is a man well satisfied with his lady. She gave a sigh, almost of relief. Thank you, for I value your regard, Fitzchivalry, as I ever have. I would not want to think I had shamed myself before you. I doubt that you could. and then drags it back to Rosemary, the
Right.
conversation. Because Kettricken started at the beginning where Rosemary started to come into the story.
Right.
And then Fitz was like, well, you talked about all these nobles that are interesting, but I don't care that much.
Yeah. What about Rosemary?
Yeah.
And then we learn that Rosemary did not have a good time when she came back.
No one claimed Rosemary after Regal died.
Right. Because after his death, it's revealed that Rosemary's father died when she was a baby and her mother died when they were in the inner duchies. So
Yeah.
there was literally no one to take care of her. And Kettricken was mad. She was mad at what Rosemary's role in everything that had happened.
And she is a lady. She is like, has a title, but it's a beggar's fiefdom.
Yeah.
Kettricken says. So there's like no one there to claim her either, because there's like no money or land or people there.
Yes. So it's just not a very good situation for her. And because Kettricken was angry and ignoring her, she was not being treated well at court. She tells Fitz, imagine she's 8 years old and not favored by the queen. Imagine how she was treated. And it does make Fitz sort of feel sympathetic because he was that person.
Yeah.
That was him at 8. He was not favored by the queen specifically.
Yes.
And it did not turn out well for him. And he had the protection of being a royal.
I tried to ignore her, but Shade would not let it rest, nor in truth could I. She was a danger to you, a half-trained assassin taught by Regal to hate you. She could not simply be left to wander about as she pleased. Now you sound like Shade. No, she was worse than that. She was a neglected child in my home, a little girl blamed by me for becoming what she was taught to be, a daily rebuke to me for my own neglect of her and my hardness of heart. If I had been all to her that a lady should be to her page, Regal could not have taken her heart from me, unless he had it before she ever came to you. And even then I should have known it, if I had not been so focused on my own life and problems. She was your page, not your daughter. You forget, I was raised in the mountains, to be sacrificed to my people, Fitz. Not a queen, such as you expect. I demand more of myself. I stepped to the side of that argument. So it was your decision to keep her. Shade said I must either keep her or be rid of her entirely. I was filled with horror at his words. Kill a child for doing what she had been taught? And then his words made me see all of it clearly. It would have been kinder to kill her outright than to torture and neglect her as I had been doing. So Kettricken had to face her own decisions here, realizing that yes, this is somebody who caused me potentially to almost kill me,
Right.
had interest in killing me or harming me, was a spy for an enemy who definitely wanted me dead. And she's just a child.
Yeah. I think this really shines in why I love Kettricken so much, because she is so able to see her own flaws and recognize when she did
for
wrong.
this, at
well,
least, yeah.
but I mean,
Just self-reflection on the situation, yeah.
Yeah, but even in the moment, I mean, she ultimately realized while it was going on that she was actively participating in the neglect of this young girl for no other reason than the fact that she was taught to be what happened to her. And so I think that's really big of her to be able to recognize that, hey, actually, I have the power to change this situation. And yes, I'm angry, but I'm a grown adult and this is an 8-year-old. And my actions, I am so far above her that my actions are having very real, very hard consequences on her. Mm-hmm. And so she does go to Rosemary's chamber alone one night. And she says that Rosemary's chamber is completely bare.
It's cold.
It's cold. The sheets are dirty. She doesn't know the last time they would have even been washed.
Her nightgown is torn and too short for her. And Rosemary's terrified.
Yeah, she's sitting on the edge of the bed as far away as she can get. And Kettricken presents her with the options of either being adopted by Lady Patience or staying on and being her page again. And Fitz interrupts and says, so she chose to be your page. And Kettricken finishes her story by saying she sobbed. She said, I thought you hated me, and it broke my heart to know that I really had done this to her and that she didn't
Yeah.
hate me at all. She's just a little girl. And it was probably that Kettricken was two people in her mind.
I was so ashamed to have been so cruel to a child, not by what I had done, but by simply ignoring her. Only Chade and I ever knew that we suspected of her of trying to harm me, but my simple shunning of the child had given the lesser folk of the keep permission to be cruel and callous to her. So yeah, it's she begged to be allowed to serve again, and she was not even 7 when she did Regal's bidding, and she kind of stayed on.
Fitz then tries to a little bit push back on this idea of like she was just a kid, saying, to her, I am sure it was a game to listen to secrets and repeat all that she had heard. And Fitz says, and greasing the steps so that you would fall. Would she be told the why of it? Or simply told to put the grease on the steps after I had gone up to the roof garden? To a child, it might have been framed as a prank. Did you ask her? A pause. Some things are best left alone. Even if she knew the intent was to make me fall, I do not think she realized the full import of it. I think perhaps that I was two people to her, the woman that Regal wanted to bring down, and Kettricken, who she served every day. The one who should be blamed for her conduct is dead, and since I took her back to my side, she has never been anything but loyal and diligent subject to me. The past must be left in the past, Fitz. Especially this is true for those who rule. I must wed my son to the daughter of an out-islander. I must promote trade and alliance with the folk who doomed my king to death. Shall I quibble about taking a little spy under my wing and turning her into a lady of my court? And Fitz then realizes, if in 15 years she had not regretted her decision, no words of mine would change it now. Nor should they, perhaps. Well, I suppose I should have expected it. You did not quibble to take on an assassin as your advisor when you came to court. As my first friend here, she corrected me gravely. And so Fitz sort of gives in, like, okay, well, she's the queen. But I think this is the moment of sort of the giving back of that power of ultimately you're in charge here, not me. Yes, I'm the farseer, but you're queen. And it's your choice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't think this explanation satisfies enough for Fitz, really. No. He's still wary of Rosemary this whole time. But, it's enough for him to drop it to Kettricken.
Right. It is a little bit insane to me that Kettricken doesn't reveal that she also is still an assassin. She surely knows.
Maybe.
You think Chade is secretly training her as an assassin under her nose?
I don't know.
Pretty treasonous. Anyway, I thought that was...
I would not put it past Chade to just say my apprentice the whole time,
Sure.
That's the only thing that I was thinking of.
Okay. Well, anyway, I feel like Kettricken has to be involved in
Probably.
That. But it's interesting to me that Fitz is sort of like annoyed by this decision, and he doesn't care necessarily about what happened to Rosemary. I think he definitely is sympathetic, but I don't think he is sympathetic enough to let that be reason enough to help her. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I wonder if that's partially because of the forging.
Maybe.
Like if he can't quite bridge that empathy gap because he doesn't know how to get over betrayal like that. And it's been a long time for him, but he hasn't really had to confront the thought of Rosemary and what happened to her, right? Like, this is basically fresh to him, but this is old news.
He hasn't thought about her in 15 years, and all of a sudden, oh, there's Rosemary. I remember the last thing that she did.
Yeah.
And Kettricken and Chade have had 15 years of, she's been great.
Yeah.
Well, with Kettricken saying, well, you were my first friend here, she kind of gets on this track again of, it shouldn't be like this. Like, you should be declared who you are. I'm not happy with this charade we must keep. I would have you honored as my friend as well as a farseer. It cannot be. And this is better. I am more used to you in this role and less risk to you and my prince, and more risk to yourself. Chade has told me about the piebalds, and Fitz is like, yeah, I can deal with that myself.
Yeah, he realizes once she brings it up that he didn't want her to know
Right.
that he was threatened.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is interesting because she is sort of taking his plight and taking it seriously in a way that Chade is not. And
I disagree with that. I think Chade is taking it seriously, but also is like, because it's a master to his apprentice, his graduated apprentice, a journeyman, he's like, okay, you can handle it then. I'll take care of the bigger stuff. I trust you to handle it. It's not that he's not concerned. It's just that his business mind is like, I got somebody else delegated to that task. I don't need to worry about it.
okay.
And I think Kettricken is more of like, you are my friend. Like,
Yeah.
I am going to be worried about any danger that you're in ever.
Okay.
I think that's more of the way that Chade was taking it.
Okay.
But she is worried for him. And she says, I'm ashamed that you face such things seemingly alone. In truth, I hate that such bigotry still exists in the Six Duchies and that our nobles turn a blind eye to it. And now she starts talking about her reaction to the wit and the piebald threats.
Right. And she talks about how Chade's role in sort of her decisions, which is now, again, it seems like every time there's big decisions to be made, she's talking about Chade's advice and how she took it. Which I think is very telling. I don't know if it's like necessarily negative or positive. I just think it's interesting to see how much Chade has influence of what Kettricken decides to do.
Yeah, and that is a big plot point, I think, in The Fool's Fate, the next book, as well.
So, yeah, so she is sort of talking about how when things first started being, or when they first saw the piebald notes, she was really mad and wanted to act in anger and let her anger be known. But Chade sort of said, I don't think that's a good idea. And so she held back. And then once she had time to calm down, she wanted to sort of reach out and ask for elders to come to the castle to say that they are allowed to ask for her help. She wants to give her justice to the piebald. She wants them to know that she's on their side. And once again, Chade told her, don't do that, mostly because
they have no recognized leaders. The wit people. Yeah.
Witted people don't usually have recognized leaders, and also they're not going to come to the castle. That's super
They don't trust
sketchy.
farseers enough. Yeah.
No. So she's like, so again, I didn't do anything, and she feels really bad about not doing more.
She specifically says, we had no go-between that they would trust, and no sureties that we could offer them that this was not a plan to lure them in and destroy them. He persuaded me to abandon the idea. Her words seemed to come more reluctantly as she added, Chade is a good counselor, wise in politics and the ways of power, yet I sometimes feel that he would steer us solely on the basis of what makes the Six Duchies most stable, with less care given for justice for all my people. He says that the greater the stability of the country, the more chance for justice to prosper. Perhaps he is right, but often and often I have longed for the way you and I used to discuss these things. There too I have missed you, Fitzchivalry. I dislike that I cannot have you at my side when I wish it, but must send for you in secret. I wish that I could invite you to join Peter and me for our game today, for I would value your opinion of him. He is a most intriguing man. So again, jump topics a little bit here, but that I think is a very accurate description of Chade. I think that is pretty much how he is written.
Yes.
He is there for the Six Duchies and the Farseer rule to survive.
Mm-hmm.
Like he says, he was kind of like upset about the about Kettricken pushing for the Out Island betrothal and would rather have wedded to one of the other duchies to solidify the duchy line, right?
Yes.
But also had to admit that Eliania is a great choice.
Yes. I think it does really show sort of the problems that Fitz had with Chade as well, right? And Kettricken goes on to say, like that's why she wishes that Fitz could be Fitzchivalry, because she likes having Fitz's point of view as well, because it's so similar to her own, and that they used to talk as when they were younger about sort of the changes they wanted to make, and having a Farseer agree with her feels nice, whereas Chade is sort of just stick to the status quo, and Fitz he's
the old man, the world is changing, old man.
There are traditions and you must keep to them always. There are no room for changing tradition. And then when it changes and it turns out good, he's like, well, I knew that. Oh, I don't know. I think it's tough. And I think it's tough for Kettricken to have been in this spot of, because she is an outsider, because she isn't someone who was raised in these lands, she can see these cracks and she can see these opportunities for growth. But because her advisor is so staunchly against growth that might shake the foundation, she can't really pursue all of the things she wants to do, which I think goes back to the theme as well of the Farseers and royalty sort of not being free, right? That like everybody thinks, oh, you're the queen, you can do whatever you want. And yet she's still beholden to Chade. She still has to make decisions that she doesn't like. She can't just do whatever she wants. And I think that's sort of a theme throughout these books of everybody thinks that a different role would make them more free.
Right.
But it's just a different set of rules put on you.
And even from Chade's point of view, he has to only advise. And yes, his advice is taken quite often because he is intelligent and he does make good decisions, but also his good decisions can be overruled in an instant because he's not the leader.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, now we switch over to conversation about Peter and the game. I shared some talk with him last evening. In the course of discussing the chance that Dutiful and Eliania would be truly happy, other talk of chance came up. And from there, we moved to games of chance. Do recall a mountain game played with cards and rune chips. And Fitz is like, I think I might recall something about it, or I read something about it. And she goes on to say there are cards or tablets either painted on heavy paper or carved on thin slabs of wood. They have emblems from our old tales, such as Old Weaver Man and Hunter in Hiding. The rune chips have runes on them for stone, water, and pasture. Yes, I'm sure I've heard of it. I think she brought this up in the first trilogy. I think it was a very passing mention.
Yeah, there is, because as she brings up later, the runes on her game are the same as the runes on the skill pillars.
Yes, or at least very, very similar.
Yeah, and so I think that's a big thing, and I think it's also said in this chapter that it helped her find the map, but I think it also helped her read the map, and that's like a big plot point, is that she sort of knows vaguely what some things mean.
Because the rune for stone, it was the quarry on the map.
Yeah.
She goes on to say that while Peter wants me to teach him to play it, he was very interested when I spoke of it. He says that in the Out Islands, they have a game played with rune cubes where they are shaken and tumbled out. Dice.
Yeah.
Then the players set out their markers onto a cloth or board that is painted with minor godlings, such as wind and smoke and tree. It sounds as if it might be a similar game, does it not? Perhaps, I conceded. That's so funny because, like, in my mind, they are not similar games at all, except for the possible linkings of the runes being similar.
Right. I mean,
it's like a dice game versus.
I mean, they're both sort of similar. Like, you're throwing something down to place something on a board, I feel like.
Right. I guess rune chips are kind of like
a more rudimentary die. I don't know if die or rune chip came first. No.
Probably rune chips, I'd guess.
Who knows?
Yeah.
But still, I feel like there are mechanics of it that are similar, especially when you think about the fact that they also both are something to do with like natural things.
Right. Yeah.
I don't know.
Her face had brightened at the prospect of teaching Peter this new game in a way that was out of proportion to the pleasure I expected her to take in it. Did my queen find this bluff Out Islander warrior attractive? You must tell me more of this game later. I would like to hear if the runes on the dice are similar to the runes on your rune chips. So Fitz immediately goes like, my platonic friend, is she thinking about somebody else?
I can't believe she'd think this bluff guy is.
I think it's more of like a Verity thing. Like, is she betraying the the memory of my king, you know?
I don't know. I feel like that's what he's telling himself it is, but
it's still a little jealousy peeking through here.
Oh, yeah.
She says, that would be intriguing, wouldn't it, if the runes resembled one another? Especially as some of the runes from my game were similar to the runes on the skill pillars. Ah, my queen was still capable of putting me off balance. She had always seemed able to think along several lines at once, bringing oddly disparate facts together to make a pattern others had missed. This had been how she had rediscovered the lost map to the kingdom of the Elderlings. I suddenly felt as if she had given me too much to think over. And this is something because this ends up being true. Their runes are very similar.
Yes.
And there's a lot of similarities between the out islands and the mountain areas
Hmm.
because there are skill pillars in the mountain areas and an Elderling city out there, Kelsingra. And as we know, Eslevjal is also an Elderling city
Yes.
and has skill pillars.
It does make me wonder sort of what the connection is to sort of I don't know how to phrase this in a good way, but I'm going to phrase it the way that Fitz would see it, if just to make it make the most amount of sense. But I wonder what the connection is to more barbaric cultures being closer to the elderling in certain ways that makes them more capable of having connections to the old ways of doing things, whereas the more updated version of life in Buckkeep is too far away for them to be able to recognize, if that makes sense.
So this is headcanon, obviously, because it starts with the cataclysm and we don't know pretty much anything about that.
Right.
But we're kind of assuming that Elderlings fled to the Six Duchies area after that, right?
Right.
Because it was safer in some way.
Hmm.
And so if the mass or the vast majority of the survivors fled to the same area, they would carry a lot of their culture with them and be able to bring a society up a little bit faster, right?
Sure.
There's already peoples in the Six Duchies, obviously, and then the Out Islander taker comes and then marries into that area that presumably has Elderling ancestors.
Right.
So they have their own lands of people. The Elderlings were accepted into that area,
Mhm.
intermingled with the people there. Out Islanders came, intermingled again. They have a lot of cultures, a lot of technologies from different cultures kind of build up. They can have a centralized society there. The places that got hit and people fled from, only the remnants would remain alive in those areas. So I feel like they would cling harder to traditions
Okay.
and they have less mingling of other cultures because they were places that people fled from, not to.
Okay.
So I think it would be more monoculture in those areas because it's not a bunch of different, peoples coming together and trying to create their own traditions.
Yeah.
It's people clinging to their pasts because this is the way that we did it before.
Yeah. That's fair.
That's just kind of headcanon of what makes sense to me based on
No,
our generated headcanon
yeah.
of what happened.
I do like that explanation. I think it does sort of explain some things really well, especially just the idea of like what happens when you merge a ton of cultures together as you lose something from all the original cultures.
Yeah. A lot of people like they'll cling on to things like there's still, the witness stones, right?
Right.
That's still an important thing in the Six Duchies. But there's no history to that the Six Duchians know.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. But it is a really interesting thing, and I do feel bad for calling the cultures
No, I understand what you mean by it though, and is well phrased from Fitz's point of view.
yeah,
Because
specifically
we've
that's how
talked
Fitz
about.
yeah.
We talked about that's how he thinks about different cultures like that.
Yeah.
So
But yeah, I do like your explanation, so thank you.
I stood to excuse myself, bowed, and then wished I had words to thank her. An instant later, it seemed a strange impulse to thank someone for mourning someone you had loved. I made a fumbling effort, but she stopped me, coming to take both my hands in hers. And perhaps only you understood what I felt at Verity's loss. To see him transformed, to know he would triumph, and yet still to mourn selfishly that I would never again see him as the man he had been. This is not the first tragedy we have shared, Fitzchivalry. We both have walked alone through much of our lives. It was unmannerly, but I did it anyway. I enfolded her in my arms and held her tightly for a moment. He loved you so, I said, and my voice choked on the words I spoke for my lost king. She rested her forehead on my shoulder. I know that, she said quietly, that love sustains me still. Sometimes I think I can almost feel him still at my shoulder, offering counsel when times are difficult. May Nighteyes be with you as Verity is with me. I held Verity's woman for a long moment. Things could have been so different. Yet her wish was a good wish, and healing. I released her with a sigh, and the queen and the serving man parted to their daily tasks.
Yeah,
It's a beautiful chapter.
it is. And I think this is crazy. I think Fitz is happy.
I think Fitz is happy. Fitz is happy.
Yes. And we have to give it to him. And I know that there was sadness here, but I think there is joy in being able to mourn
He
someone.
has to be happy. He had a healing kiss.
Yes. I'm always happy after healing kisses from all my platonic friends that
Right.
I...
Which platonic friends?
Don't worry about it.
The queen?
The Queen Kettricken. No, I think that this is a very good moment of sort of, they really are so similar in a lot of ways, very different in others, but in a lot of ways they're similar. And I think sort of their moral compasses are very similar. Their ideas of wanting to make things better for more people, not just the Farseers. And
they bounce really well off of one another with their ideas, because they do have similar ideas, but they have different ways of getting there.
Yeah.
And it's in a way where they both want to discuss those things.
Yes.
And what Kettricken mentioned there as well, on the emotional side, that they have walked alone much of their lives, is doubly true as well.
Yes.
Because even though Fitz was a friend to Kettricken in the first trilogy, she was alone at the castle for like a long time.
Yeah. I really would love to have a book in Kettricken's point of view. I would love to, especially during the time of, well, maybe when Fitz isn't around, but also just during the time of Regal and Verity and sort of navigating this new country and what that was like on her side, because we're reading this book from Fitz's point of view, and Fitz is sort of in his own mind about what he's doing. And occasionally we do get those glances of how other people are doing and what's going on in the background. And there are so much depth there. But I think a chapter like this really shows that there is so much more going on that we're missing by the fact of being in Fitz's head.
Kettricken is such a well-crafted character. I was thinking about it while you were reading some passages in this chapter of just like how unique her character feels from a lot of the other people.
Yeah.
And it really makes me appreciate the depth that Robin Hobb went into writing some of these characters and motivations, and the way that they speak and the way that they prioritize things.
Yeah.
Because Kettricken is vastly different from Molly. I think I had the thought when you were saying that I'm still a Molly and Fitz truther, you know?
Yeah.
Because she is vastly different from Molly. And she's vastly different from Eliania, and she's vastly different from Malta and Althea and all of these people. I don't know. It's really nice to see. And I can see like similarities between all the live ship trader women.
Yeah.
You know, their family, but like Kefria, Malta.
But you see the like
Veronica.
familial line that runs through people that are related. You see like with Dutiful and Fitz, you see when they're doing something that is similar to each other, but it's still different because they're different people.
And then you can also see the similarities like when Fitz meets Rurisk and really, really likes him, and you can see like, oh man, I can actually kind of like understand my father a little bit by meeting this man, because like they were friends. I don't know. It's really cool. She tells a lot in just the relationships between the characters and how they think and act.
Yeah. And I think we've talked about this before, but I think I just really appreciate having characters who feel like they exist outside of their time on screen.
Yeah.
Like
100%.
On screen is, but
it's definitely a benefit to have, 16 books in a series and have them be pretty long.
Yeah.
But also there is an economical feeling to it, I guess, because we spend so much time in Fitz's head that the short amount of screen time that these characters do have to express their opinions, they do it in a way that reveals a lot of what they have been doing off screen.
Yes. Yeah. I don't know. I'm not saying that like other books don't do that at all, but I do feel like sometimes in other books, especially in fantasy, it does sort of feel like the world is moving around the main character. Like, or the main character gets told something that happens off screen because it will directly affect them and it changes the plot line, but there's nothing happening off screen just to happen, you know? And I feel like this book does a really good job of having both, where like, yes, a lot of things have to happen for Fitz to move. That's how books work. But it never feels like that. It never feels like the world is following behind Fitz. And when it does, it feels like it can be explained because he's the catalyst, right?
Right.
Like,
yeah.
because obviously you can't get away. You can't get away from it. It is a book at the end of the day that is fully made up. But I think this series in general makes you forget that some of the time. And that's really well done.
There's a lot of epic fantasy books that I think are super well done. And if you like epic fantasy, for me especially, the ones that I really like are the authors that can make me read details and not get bored about them.
Yeah.
Like Robert Jordan is one. You know, Wheel of Time does go on and on endlessly about the specific physical actions that characters are taking repeatedly when they're speaking, when they're feeling a certain way, or the repeated descriptions of clothing or the buildings. But it never makes me bored. And I think that's the mark of a great writer. It's the same way that Robin Hobb, you know, goes off on these tangents of like, oh, and here's Lord Bright. Remember him from like one paragraph in the first trilogy?
Yeah.
Now you get to know his whole background of the 15 years he's been doing.
Yeah.
And it doesn't feel just kind of like slotted in because Lord Bright's going to be important later. No, it's just Fitz going about his day. And like, that's just part
Fitz
of the
knows
history
who that is.
he's learning.
Yeah.
Because he has been away for 15 years. And, you know, sometimes that happens in conversation where unimportant things that are interesting get thrown in.
Yeah. Like,
But it
hey,
also
you know
doesn't
that guy, you know?
Yeah. But it also doesn't feel pointless either, you know? That's also a good mark because it could just be extraneous detail. And it is technically, but it doesn't make me bored to read it.
Right. I still want to know. And then
Yeah.
I'm left being like, okay, well, what else? Like, tell me more. I need to know everything.
Yeah. So, you know, we don't know if you guys like Robin Hobb as much as we do. You've only listened to 291 episodes of this podcast after
Like-
you've read a full 16 books by her.
Yeah.
So,
Thousands of hours worth
Right.
of listening of to two random strangers
but
talking
we think she's
about the
pretty cool, I guess.
I guess I'll say she's in my top 10 authors.
This is a good chapter. I like this one.
Yeah. It's very sweet.
Well, thank you for tuning in, listening to all of our tangents and our discussions on this. We really appreciate you. If you have thoughts, please let us know. It is fitzhappy@gmail.com, or message us or comment on any of our posts on social media. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky, Reddit, and YouTube, where it is Fitzhappy at all of those. Or you can go to our website at isfitzhappy.com or isfitzhappy.podbean.com. And there's all of our episodes are on there, obviously, but there's also a link at the top for a link tree, and you can find all of our other links on there. Thank you so much for tuning in.
See you next week. All right, time for the best part. We're going to talk about what you guys brought to our attention.
Before we get into that, I do want to thank some people who have sent in some tips and donations. So first off, as always, thank you to our recurring, sponsors here.
Yeah.
We have Anna, Neva, and Degenhart. But I also want to give a shout out and a big thank you to Liz as well.
Yeah, thank you.
Really appreciate your support.
Thank you so much. So on to the good stuff. We have first and foremost a message or a DM we got on Instagram. And this is from Audrey, who wrote in to talk about Fitz's point of view. And this is specific to episode 290. It's funny to me how Fitz thinks Out Islander and mountain people are barbaric, but is descended from them. If I recall correctly, Taker was from the Out Islanders, and there have been many marriages between the Farseer and the Out Islanders, and Fitz's mother is from the mountains. I think it fits the theme of tolerance for others and how a nation is made by integrating new people and their ways. I'm not sure I'm as clear. But yes, I agree. I
Yeah.
think that was very clear.
And I think it kind of goes on to what we were just saying at the end of this episode, actually, which is kind of
Yes.
funny and good
Yeah.
timing there. Thank you very much. Yeah, no, I totally agree with that because the Six Duchies is made by intermingling all of those. Their culture is made from a bunch of different peoples. They want to integrate the Mountain Kingdom as a duchy. They're renewing their ties to the Out Islanders, and yet
Yes.
Fitz cannot help but say they're barbaric cultures and these barbarians are walking in.
Yes. And I think it's pretty well stated in the text that, or at least it's heavily theorized, that the strength of skill is replenished by bringing out Islanders into the bloodline.
Yeah.
That's something about mixing Farseer and
It's long suspected, yeah.
yeah, that like skill is something that the duchies and Out Islander blood mingling together produces. So I think it's really funny too to like not respect it. And it goes back to sort of the beginning of the chapter when he met with Thick and was saying, you know, Thick isn't stupid, he's just different.
Right.
And he can have that respect for an individual, but he can't have that respect for a culture that isn't his own, apparently. So that is kind of funny and a very good call that like it does speak to sort of the theme of you need those different cultures. You need that to grow.
Thank you very much for sending that in, Audrey.
We also received some comments on Facebook, and this is from episode 290 because it's last week's episode. And the first one we'll talk about is from Kristen, who said that they found the epigraph interesting, not just in regards to the Four Masters, but also as the scroll has been translated by Chade. The skill has long been regarded in Buck as Farseer magic, but the fact that it had to be translates indicates that its origin was not from Buck, as we have never heard any mention of Old Tongue or alternate language. It is true, the mention of the Four Masters could indicate a link with Claris, although the possibility that the term Four Masters could have been mistranslated by Chade is there. And there's no mention of it.
Yeah.
There's no mention of this. This proves the skill does exist outside the Six Duchies. And what is equally interesting is that none of the other cultures we encounter mention the wit.
So I looked up just very briefly, and it was only for this book. I searched my ebook for the words translated. And when, like, after Eliania challenges Dutiful to go slay Icefire, Fitz and Chade look up a bunch of stuff about Aslevjal and the Stone Dragons and like the sleeping dragon of Aslevjal and Icefire and all this stuff.
Yes.
And he's also at this time translating these skill scrolls that Chade has and helping that. And the only mention I could see in there is that they refer to it as archaic lettering, giving him a headache. And it's like cracked vellum that's really hard to see. So that is my guess that it is the same language, just a very old way of writing. But we don't know. It could be from different languages, different cultures, could have been sent in. But the specific ones in Golden Fool in some future chapter he is translating from a hard to read archaic lettering of presumably the Six Duchies language.
Right. I think it is a good call out, though, that there isn't a lot of mention about language and how it has evolved for the duchies specifically.
Right.
We know that the Out Islanders are more of a oral customs sort of thing, so they don't have as many written.
Their minstrels / bards are very hard to understand. We know that.
Yes, and there's also that. But as for the duchies, it is sort of not touched on very like thoroughly, I guess. So yeah, maybe it is proof. Maybe it's more just proof of like we don't know how old this is. Maybe this is the Four Masters are Elderlings. And so this language is from the Elderlings. I don't know. I will say though that wit is mentioned in another culture, and that is specifically, oh my gosh, Chalcid. I was gonna say Claris. No, other sea name. Chalced does mention the wit specifically because we know that because Burek is from Chalced and he has the wit and his grandmother had the wit, and it is something that Burek knows as being wit.
Right. We don't know. So his grandmother was a slave. We don't know if they grabbed her from a bordering duchy at all.
That's true.
For sure. However, we do know that at least people were aware of it in Chalced. So yes.
So yeah. So I don't know. So there's
that is the only other one, and it is bordering the duchies. So
yes.
That is interesting as well.
I know. Yeah. And especially because this chapter, Fitz made the mention of Kettricken. He thinks Kettricken is witted, but in the mountain culture, she's just connected to nature.
Right.
And they don't have the same word for it.
Thank you very much, Kristen.
To think on.
Very interesting, yeah. We also had a couple comments on here from Ellen. And the first one is regarding Beloved's warning to Fitz from Lord Golden to Tom Badgerlock being like, hey, don't react to anything in here. And we were kind of discussing like maybe it's warning him to not react angrily to any overtures or things about the rumors that are going around about Tom Badgerlock.
Right.
But Ellen thinks that it might be a reaction to Fitz's more murderous side and his assassin qualities coming out again, like with the cave in Deerkin, and just kind of saying like, hey, remember, we are in public, cool it down. And Ellen points to his reaction to Rosemary as a reason maybe why the warning was necessary.
Yeah, I think that's such a good call out, and I can't believe I didn't think about it because I'm just like, come on, when is your friend overreacted ever? And then, yeah, like last book, I don't know, 3 days ago when he threatened to kill a child. Yeah, maybe Fitz did need that warning.
Hey, by the time he was Deerkin's age, he had killed like 50 people at least.
Oh, well, then that makes it fine.
Ellen also says that on the question if Patience knows Chade, do you think they worked together when she took over and protected Buckkeep during the war? I think they must have. Chade did not go with Regal, I think. And I feel like my memory's a little bit hazy because it's been 6 years since we've been doing this. I guess maybe 4 years since the third book. But I remember Chade being active traveling the Six Duchies. I don't think he specifically worked with Patience that whole time, but he must have met up with her. But he traveled the countryside spreading rumors about the king returning and things like that. He spread propaganda, and then he was also visiting with Kettricken in the Mountain Kingdom, relaying news.
I feel like there was a mention of Chade helping Patience sell her jewelry to fund.
That would make sense. Yeah. He's like acting as a go-between for pretty much everything.
So I feel, and maybe I'm making that up, but I feel like they at least have had contact with each other.
Yeah.
In that capacity.
Yeah. And we do know that Patience knows Chade, so.
Right. And knows who he is, right? Because Chivalry told her and Chade was mad about it.
That's what we assume about. Yeah.
I mean, hello, they were married. I'm sure he told her everything. He didn't tell her about his kids, so.
True.
And the affair. So I guess he had his own
He didn't have an affair. This was before they met.
Oh, yeah, good point. But he didn't tell her she wasn't the first, so maybe he did. I don't know. He didn't know the kid existed. I'm being really harsh to Chivalry for no reason. Sorry, Shiv.
But thank you, Ellen.
Yeah, thanks, Ellen.
Yeah, good call outs there.
And speaking of Chade and Patience, we got an email from Simon saying that this is probably just headcanon, but I like to think that Chade and Patience feel like old comrades as they led the resistance to Regal and the preservation of Buck together. Patience as the central commander of it all, and Chade as the roving hero.
Yeah, which piggybacking basically off of what we just talked about there. So great call. Great add-on, Simon, even though you weren't commenting on that specific thing and just emailed us, but that was perfect timing, to be honest.
Yes.
As confirmation.
Also, Simon has a little headcanon saying, do we assume that Patience and Lacey are a couple? Fitz says that poor Patience only had her serving woman with her. Seems like a misread to me. Analogous to him not understanding the sexual mores of the circle he's in.
And I feel like that's kind of a fan canon that Patience and Lacey are together.
And listen, I love it.
But
I'm here for
also,
it.
Fitz didn't mention that he saw Lacey, and he knows Lacey very well.
That's true.
So I don't think Lacey was at this particular dinner, and he was just in general thinking like, oh, I feel so bad for Patience, a declining woman with only her servants left, and just didn't think of Lacey. But besides that, I agree with you.
Yeah. Why wouldn't they be? No, I get why they wouldn't be, but I like it.
I feel
It hurts no one to believe it. I believe.
in my head, I feel like Lacey mentioned having a husband and kids sometime. I don't know why I think this.
I feel like you might be right.
I just don't remember anymore. I could be wrong.
Maybe.
I could be wrong, but
Either way, I don't care.
yeah,
I don't care what she has or hasn't said, and that could be a cover.
true.
What is her man's name? Definitely
Beardsley.
Beardsley. Beardsley. No, his name is Manly.
There you go. Well, thank you, Simon.
Yeah, thanks,
I think
Simon.
I think it's at least in this household, a relatively accepted fan canon.
I like it, and so it shall be. We also, and finally, I suppose, we also got an email from listener Allie.
Yeah, this is also about episode 290. And Allie is talking about Fitz's stated reason for why he can't reveal himself to Patience, basically saying that she would be too incautious and yell it to the wind. And Allie says that when she does find out he is alive, her first inclination is not to tell everyone, but to berate Chade. I believe that Fitz is afraid of facing the consequences of pretending to be dead for so long, and he's reluctant to tell her just because of his partial forging and being scared of that.
Right. I agree. I really do
Yeah,
feel
me
like
too.
it's sort of a posturing of like, oh, she wouldn't know better than to just tell everybody.
And I
She'd
really
be too
think the
excited.
fool just kind of lets that go too. I mean, he had a rough night. He was kind of drunk, I'm sure, as
Yeah.
well. But he just like lets Fitz have that as his explanation.
I mean, it's very clear that his friend does not want to engage with this thought and is not about to change his mind. So I think it makes sense to be like, yeah,
Fitz with Kettricken about Rosemary, you know?
Like, all right, like, I guess live your truth.
Mm-hmm. No, we agree with you, Allie. Great call out there. We didn't talk about it in depth during that episode, but it's good to bring it up now.
Yeah. And then Allie also talks about the abominations being afraid of cats. And maybe it's because cats are so like dragons and they remind the abominations of what they are supposed to be. This has always bothered me because I feel like there has to be more significance in the connection between the cats and dragons. It is such an odd thing to emphasize without it really going anywhere.
I agree. I was looking for this to kind of pop out other places.
Yeah.
But we just don't get anything.
Well, besides the inferences that you can make by knowing Fennel and any other cats, and then also reading the dialogue with the dragons.
Right.
Like they are super similar personalities. And it is such a big deal in that scene where Kenneth is like, by the way, there's kittens on the beach.
Yep.
Odd.
Really weird.
But also, kittens being on the beach imply, because they are from the Elderling city, right? That implies Elderlings had cats.
Blue kittens.
So why, if you were loyal to dragons, would you have cats if dragons don't like them? So it can't be.
Well, no, it's abominations fear kittens because they reminded them of what they should be. I don't think dragons are ever afraid of cats.
Well, no, sorry. We don't know if dragons are afraid of cats or not.
I don't think they would be, personally. But that's just my headcanon as well. But yeah. Yeah, I don't know. But also, like, most things that wash up are, magical trinkets on that beach. Why is there, like, a leather bag with 7 identical blue dead kittens in there? Like, who was saving that?
Maybe they weren't real. Maybe they were dolls.
Maybe.
But Kenneth does seem to think they are real dead cats.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Just a weird thing. Anyways, thank you very much, Allie.
Yeah, thank you, Allie. And thank you to everybody who wrote in and sent us messages. We really appreciate hearing from you guys, and we can't wait to hear what you have to say next week.